probably turning in his grave. Anyway, so we walk out into the dark. Now, 4:31, by this time it's probably 4:33. It's pitch black in Los Angeles. And it's pitch black because there's no power, there are no lights. The only thing you can hear are transformers popping and sirens in the distance. The ADs and the humanoids have all gone off taking care of business. And what's left is this trailer of aliens, and because it was a heavy alien show that day, other aliens coming out of other trailers. And we're all standing around looking at each other, you know, and you, as I said yesterday, you realize that this perhaps is a plot, that the earth has opened up, and people are coming up from out of the ground, and people are coming down, and they're going to take over Los Angeles, and they're going to move east. I call home, everything's okay. We're in our makeup. We're all in our makeup. Very staged, but most of it, because we started about 3 o'clock, so we're pretty much in makeup. So I call home, everything's okay, but Armin and Ed Wiley, the Cardassian, they call home and nothing can't get through. They get panicked, they wait around, they decide, screw it, we're going home, got to find out what's happening. So they jump in their cars. Now, yeah, because in Los Angeles, when we drive in our cars, we never look at each other. We get in our cars and we close the windows and we turn on our radios or put our CDs in or our tapes and stuff like that, put on our shades, and we're cool, and we don't bother with anyone else. If you look at somebody might give you these kinds of signs, and then you give them the wrong look and it's goodbye. Or whatever. So, but we have to look at each other because since there's no power, there are no traffic lights. So you come up to the intersection and you play your Alphonse Gaston, after you Alphonse, no after you Gaston, no Alphonse Gaston, and then some guy who's like going off to like his job as whatever, turns around and there's Quark. And this guy he's not a Star Trek fan. And figures, well, maybe I'll make a left-hand turn, and he turns around and there's a Cardassian. And the guy figures maybe something was in his coffee that he hadn't counted on, and maybe he should just turn around and go home. And he does. So anyway, really, the Armin said he was never treated more courteously in Los Angeles than he was that morning. So by the time Armin got home, it's okay, they're fine, but Ed Wiley comes home. And the capper to this story is Ed Wiley, who's this big, sort of virile, burly guy, and he's married to this petite English woman who never wanted to come to Los Angeles because of her fear of earthquakes. You got it. So this woman is petrified, and she's sitting in the front hallway of their house on a banquette facing the front door, and they have 4 boys, 1, 3, 5, and 7. And she's got 2 on each side, and she's, got each arm around 2 of them, and they're all shaking, and she's whimpering and crying and so forth. And Ed comes bursting through the door in his best Shakespearean imitation and takes a look at his wife and 4 children, and the children start screaming. And as I said yesterday, they're all in analysis. But it was an extraordinary event. It was one I will never forget. And yes, sir.
Yes, the writers in DS9 seem to have gone to great pains to draw comparisons between Cardassia and I think Nazi Germany.
Yes.
And with you going to the Holocaust Museum, have you incorporated that part of history into your background with Derek and Cardassia as a whole?
That's a great question, because you know what I found out yesterday when I was going on this trip? You see, I don't know what, I haven't, although I promised Armin and Renee and Avery that I'll come and hear them talk when they go to a convention. I don't know. I still haven't seen what the other actors do when they come to a convention. I know it's basically this, and you know better than I. But I do know that in my work as an actor, I try not to separate it from what happens to me as a human being, as a man living in this society, in this world. And I don't mean that in any highfalutin, pretentious way. I mean that as an actor, my life is my material. mean, if I'm a violinist, then I have my instrument. If I'm a dancer, then I have my body, my physical body that I can move, you know, if I'm a painter and so forth. But as an actor, I have to count on my emotional, my mental, my psychic experiences. And I use these. For instance, with Garrick, I'm coming to your question, I really am. With Garrick, if Garrick has pain, if Garrick has joy, if Garrick has specific emotions, I try to make them real. They're real emotions. Like that episode, The Wire, about addiction. I've been addicted. I think we all have some experience with addiction. I'm not just talking about with drugs or with booze. Perhaps there's an addiction to food. Perhaps there's addiction to bad love affairs. I mean, whatever. But we all have experience, or there's some part of us that flirts with addiction. And it's that part of me that I tried to bring to bear in that episode. And so forth and so on. I think you get the point. When I went to Holocaust Museum, and I saw what one race of people attempted to do, and quite successfully, 2 out of every 3 Jews living in Europe were destroyed during the war. Not to mention the countless gypsies, homosexuals, politicos, left-wingers, communists, and so forth. Stalin killed 20 million people during his reign. These are mind-boggling numbers. Now, I do not take Star Trek, the Star Trek universe, as a fantasy. I think we come here so that we can talk about issues, and talk about issues in a way that it doesn't turn into shouting matches. And we use this universe, the Star Trek universe, as a paradigm, or as a metaphor for our own universe, then perhaps we can talk about serious issues using this metaphor without getting into shouting matches and without getting embroiled and stuff. So, take the Cardassians, for instance. Yes, I think especially at the beginning, when they were introduced, they were conceived to be the Nazis of outer space. They enslaved the people. Deep Space Nine, then Terok Nor, was a slave labor camp. The ore processing centers were manned by slaves. There's numerous indications that there were a genocide committed frequently. And yet, you have other Cardassians who appear. You have the Cardassian in that wonderful episode, Duet, who is so guilty about what his people have done, he tries to pass himself off as the gull who is the head of this notorious slave labor camp, of this concentration camp. And he wasn't, but he wants to take the sins in a very Christian way on himself to somehow redeem his people or himself or his soul, whatever. And you have other Cardassians who are coming in. So it's like, at the beginning, my father was killed in World War II, so I assumed that all Germans were evil. I thought that, that this was some place that, you should put a high wall around and never let anybody out. And you realize that that's not the case. The Germans were as victimized by themselves as anyone else. So yeah, I do use that. And there is that part of Garrick, and Garrick does have some dark and dirty secrets. And he has shame. The writers haven't indicated what that is, but I've made my own conclusions about what that is. And in his odd way, I think he's trying to redeem himself. Thank you for that question. Yes, sir.
How does your wife and children, if you have any, feel about you being part of American heritage, and what impact has it had on your family?
My wife thanks God that the checks clear the bank. And my children, mainly my daughter, because the 2 sons are too old to care. I mean, they do care. But my daughter thinks it's funny that I walk around this mask, and whenever her friends come over, she shows them pictures of me. And they all laugh. They look at me and then they laugh. So, I take it as a compliment. So it's funny. My family's never been very impressed by what I do. I mean, they're not, and they shouldn't be. I mean, if I'm an idiot, then you know, then they get on my case. But if I'm going out and I'm making a living and I'm a good guy, then it's okay. But they don't make a big deal out of it, which, you know, is fine. I sometimes wish they would, you know. Well, you know, gosh, honey, I'm doing important things. Yeah, take out the garbage. Yes, sir, the white shirt. And the black shirt after you.
You mentioned that you were worried about the character of Garrett kind of being put on the back burner by the writers. And the first few seasons were really dedicated to building up the mystique of character. Is he a tailor? Is he a spy? And now that's pretty much been realized. Where do you see the character going from here?
You know, where do I see the character going from here after the way they've set him up in the first 3 seasons? I don't know, because after that 2-part episode last year, Improbable Cause and the Dias Cast, yeah, thanks, I like that too. I had a good time with that. That was, and working with Renee, I mean, it's such a pleasure. Where they leave him, and for those of you who don't know, they left him on Deep Space Nine because his whole hope of returning to Cardassia has been smashed to smithereens. So I don't know where they're going to take him from here. He's, on the one hand, he's a fixture of Deep Space Nine, and in this 2-hour episode that we're shooting right now, that I go back to work on tomorrow morning, without giving too much away, basically things get even rougher for the Cardassian Empire. I mean, you want to talk about the chickens coming home to roost. I mean, it's time for the Cardassians to get a little of their own back, I guess, because that's what this episode is all about. So there's even seems less of a chance that he's going to get back there. So, although he's now a fixture on Deep Space Nine, I don't know how, you know, I just hope that they don't have him popping in scenes and, you know, and sort of like coming up with the occasional bon mot or, you know, or gag. I love the gags. The boy who cried wolf, never tell the same lie twice. I mean, stuff like that is brilliant. It's so Garrick, and I just, you know, and I just sort of itch. I can't wait to say those lines. I love them. I love good stuff. Because I myself am a very poor liar. I really am. I tried being a good liar. As a matter of fact, I won't tell you how hard I tried. I really, when I was younger, I tried hard. But I was always a bad liar. So it's wonderful to play someone who lies as beautifully as he does. So I have no idea. I hope somehow that the intrigue, that they will keep him involved in some intrigue or other. Yes, sir, in the black shirt.
I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts about what you think the particular strengths of the DS9 format are as compared with the other Star Treks, and what do you think about the changes in format this season?
Well, to the first question, oh boy, you're going right. Those 2 questions are one. Okay, let's deal with it. Let's deal with this head on. There has been a lot of BS, birdseed, about, well, DS9 doesn't get in a ship and it doesn't go to other places and doesn't have these adventures. Well, no, it doesn't. That's right, and that's the point. It doesn't. It's a space station on the frontiers of space where all kinds of races and creations intermingle, come together. And it's a microcosm for the world, let's face it. But it's a place where everybody passes through and where there's a certain amount of confrontation between these various creatures and creations and so forth. And that's the beauty of it as far as I'm concerned. So the people who support the classic Star Trek, you know, I mean, this disturbs them. Now, what the producers have done, in their wisdom, I hope, is that they claim that the ratings for Deep Space Nine aren't as good as they should be, quote unquote. So they bring someone, Michael Dorn, who plays Worf from The Next Generation. And this is going to be big changes. As a matter of fact, this 2-hour episode, excuse me, too much coffee, is all about introducing Worf onto Deep Space Nine. And the whole plot basically involves the Klingon Empire, Michael Dorn, the Cardassians, and Deep Space Nine. And I don't know what's going to happen.